They showed up on my doorstep with handcuffs, all because of trees I didn't plant on land I don't even own. One day, I was quietly tending my yard. The next, my HOA accused me of stealing 84 apple trees, and within hours, I was being hauled away in front of my neighbors like a criminal. The whispers spread faster than the sirens. People I'd waved to for years turned their backs. Friends stopped calling. Even my own kids started asking if I was going to jail. And the strangest part? Not a single apple tree was missing. Someone wanted me destroyed, someone powerful, and they weren't stopping at lies. So I made a choice. I fought back. But what I uncovered during that fight about my neighbors, my HOA, and the secret they were hiding was far darker than I ever imagined. What would you have done?
At first, life here felt like the dream we'd worked so hard for. Quiet streets lined with maples, kids riding bikes without fear, the smell of fresh-cut lawns drifting on warm evenings. It wasn't just a neighborhood, it was a small, carefully managed world, and for a while we fit perfectly inside it. Our house sat on the corner of Willow Lane, painted soft blue with white trim. The kind of place you pass and imagine laughter coming from inside, and for a while that was true. We spent weekends planting flowers, grilling with neighbors, and waving at every passing car. The HOA newsletters were dull but harmless, filled with bake sale announcements and reminders to bring trash cans in on time. Nothing about this place seemed dangerous, until small cracks began to show. It started as whispers, tiny, sharp things you almost miss. A comment about how tall my hedges were getting. A note left on our door about non-compliant paint shades after we'd simply touched up the shutters. Harmless, maybe, but too precise. Someone was watching. I brushed it off. Everyone said the HOA here just liked things a certain way. I told myself it wasn't personal. But then came the meetings. Not friendly gatherings in driveways, but stiff, rule-heavy sessions in the clubhouse. People stopped smiling there. Conversations shifted from cookouts and kids' sports to citations and fines. I'd sit there, heart thudding, while board members dissected neighbors' lawns like crime scenes, counting inches of grass, debating fence heights like national security. I began noticing the tension in others, too. A woman down the street got fined for a wind chime that was too reflective. Another family had to rip out their flower beds because the colors weren't approved. The same neighbors who once shared sugar now quietly reported each other. And yet I still believed we were safe. We followed every rule, paid every fee. Why would anyone target us? But one afternoon, as I watered the garden, I caught two board members lingering at the edge of our yard, clipboards in hand, eyes scanning every inch of our property. When I waved, they didn't wave back. They just scribbled notes, then walked off in silence. Something had shifted. I didn't know it then, but those clipboards were the first sign of what was coming. A storm of accusations, legal threats, and betrayal that would tear this quiet street apart. And somehow, it would all begin with a claim so bizarre, so impossible, that no one believed I could survive it.
The first letter arrived on a Tuesday. A single sheet of paper slipped under our front door, printed in that cold, emotionless HOA letterhead. Violation. Unauthorized planting. No details, no explanation, just a warning that if the issue wasn't remedied within 10 days, we would face fines of up to $500 per day. I stared at it, confused. We hadn't planted anything new in months. The lawn was trimmed, the flower beds clean. Everything was exactly as it had been for years. I thought it had to be a mistake, but when I called the HOA office, a voice answered that felt like it was reading from a script. According to our inspection, you've introduced non-compliant flora to your lot. Flora? I asked. We have tulips. We've always had tulips. Silence. Then, remove them or face penalties. The call ended with a click. The next morning, a second letter appeared. Violation. Unauthorized structures. I walked around the yard 3 times trying to see what they meant. Nothing had changed. No fences, no sheds, no structures. But there, staked into the soil at the corner of our property, was a tiny orange flag. It hadn't been there the night before. And it was marked HOA Survey Division. By Friday, the fines had started. $500, then $1,000, then $1,500. Every day they added another charge, like clockwork. Each letter came with photographs of our yard from strange angles, as if someone had been sneaking onto our property at night. In the background of one photo, blurred but unmistakable, was a figure standing by our mailbox, clipboard in hand, watching. We decided to fight back the normal way: emails, appeals, phone calls. No one answered. At the next HOA meeting, we showed up early, documents in hand, ready to prove we'd done nothing wrong. But when they called our name, the room fell silent. 7 board members sat at a long table, faces blank as stone. I laid out the letters, the photos, everything. They didn't even look down. One of them simply said, "This matter has escalated beyond community review. You will comply or face legal action." And then they moved on to the next agenda item, like we were nothing. The neighbors didn't meet our eyes as we walked out. Some turned their chairs away. That night, the first real act of sabotage happened. We woke to find our mailbox ripped from the ground, twisted like wire. Our garbage cans scattered across the street. Someone had smeared mud across our front door. There were no witnesses, no security cameras caught anything. But taped to our garage was another HOA citation. Failure to maintain property standards. They fined us $2,000. We stopped sleeping. I'd sit awake at the window until sunrise, lights off, just watching. Every sound made my chest seize. Every passing car felt like it was slowing down, watching, planning. And still, the letters came. Violation, violation, violation. They said our porch light was too bright, our grass too short, our fence too aged in appearance. Then came the most unbelievable one yet. Theft of association property, 84 apple trees. I read it 5 times thinking I was losing my mind. 84 apple trees? We didn't have a single apple tree on our lot. No one on our entire street did. It felt like a prank, like someone had slipped a joke into the system. Until the sheriff's cruiser pulled up. They came just after noon, sun blazing, kids playing down the street. 2 deputies stepped out, hands resting on their belts. "Are you homeowner's name?" "Yes." "You're under investigation for the theft of HOA property." I laughed. I actually laughed out loud. "This is a mistake," I said. "We didn't take anything." But they weren't smiling. They showed me a document signed by the HOA board claiming we had illegally removed and concealed 84 fruit-bearing apple trees belonging to the community orchard. We had never even seen a community orchard. But the deputies searched our yard, our garage, our shed. They photographed everything. And when they left behind something worse than fear. A court summons. From that moment on, the neighborhood turned on us completely. People stopped speaking to us. Some crossed the street rather than pass our house. One afternoon, I caught a group of neighbors gathered at the edge of our lawn, whispering, pointing at the dirt like they were expecting to see buried trees. Every time we opened the curtains, someone was watching. We stopped using the front door. The kids wouldn't play outside. It felt like living inside a glass box. Every move tracked, every breath documented. And still, the HOA fines kept coming. We tried hiring a lawyer. The first one quit after 2 days, said the case was too messy and politically tangled. The second never called back after the initial meeting. The third laughed when he saw the accusation. 84 trees? Where would you even put them? He asked. Then his smile faded. But they're serious, aren't they? Dead serious. And by the time we found someone willing to fight, the HOA had already filed a civil claim. $4 million in damages. Our savings evaporated into legal fees. We sold our car, maxed out our credit cards. Every night I'd sit at the kitchen table, surrounded by stacks of paper, citations, fines, legal threats, while my spouse tried to comfort the kids upstairs as they cried about moving away. The house that once felt like safety had turned into a trap. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, it did. One morning, I came downstairs to find our entire front yard dug up. The grass was gone, the flower beds torn apart. Even the soil was stripped away in wide, jagged scars. In the center of the destruction was a laminated notice from the HOA. Recovery Operation, Association Property. They had come in the night, without warning, with trucks and shovels, and ripped our land apart looking for their phantom apple trees. They found nothing, but they billed us $28,000 for the restoration costs. Something in me snapped. I wasn't afraid anymore. I was furious. We stopped playing defense. We began documenting everything: videos, photos, timestamps, witness statements. We filed complaints with the city, the county, anyone who would listen. Most doors slammed in our faces, but one didn't. A quiet man from the county records office called me after hours. His voice was low, urgent. He said, "I think you should see something." He sent me a map, the original property lines for the community. And there, in black and white, was something stunning. The so-called community orchard had never existed. Not on our lot, not on any lot, not anywhere. It was a line item created on paper, inserted into HOA bylaws 10 years earlier, with no physical presence and no legal registration. It was a ghost, a fiction, a weapon. The next HOA meeting was the first time I showed fearlessness. I walked into that room with the county map in my hand and rage in my chest. The board sat stiff as always, eyes like ice. I laid out the map on the table. "This is your orchard," I said. "This thing you've accused me of stealing, this thing you've destroyed my life over." They didn't speak. I pressed harder. "It doesn't exist. It never existed, and I have proof." A murmur rippled through the room. Neighbors shifted in their seats, eyes darting between us. One board member reached for the map. I pulled it back. "You've been using imaginary property to fine, harass, and threaten families. That ends now." And that's when the president of the HOA finally spoke. His voice was soft, too soft. "You should be very careful. People who go against this board don't last long here." That night, someone broke into our house. They didn't take anything. They didn't smash windows or force doors. They just moved things, subtle things. Chairs out of place, drawers left open. Our family photo face down on the mantel. And on the kitchen counter, a single apple. I called the police. They filed a report, Nothing more. No fingerprints, no evidence, no suspects. Just another note in a long list of incidents. The message was clear. We weren't supposed to win. But it was too late. We weren't backing down. I gathered everything. The fake orchard documents, the harassment letters, the photos, the fines,
The courtroom smelled like cold marble and fear. I'd never seen so many eyes on me at once. Rows of neighbors lined the benches, whispering, their faces pale and restless. The same people who once waved to us from their driveways now sat pressed together, waiting to see if we would win or be crushed. At the front, the HOA board sat in a perfect row, suits too sharp, faces too calm, like they'd rehearsed this. The judge entered. Everyone rose. And just like that, years of torment became one moment. Our lawyer stood first. "Your Honor," she said, voice steady, "we will show that the defendants, the HOA board, fabricated property, weaponized false accusations, and tried to destroy my clients' lives to cover up years of embezzlement." The board's attorney stood next, all grin and venom. "This is nothing more than a petty vendetta," he said. "My clients acted in good faith to protect their community from theft. The plaintiffs are disgruntled, dishonest, and seeking a payday." My blood burned. A payday? We had lost everything, our savings, our peace, our reputation. But I said nothing, not yet. The HOA began with their strongest lie. They projected photographs on the screen, wide shots of grassy fields, rows of trees, apples glowing red in the sun. "This," their attorney said proudly, "is the community orchard, the property the plaintiffs destroyed." But our lawyer was ready. She stood, calm as ice. "Where were these photographs taken?" He blinked. "At the orchard." "Which parcel?" He frowned. "The community parcel." "Can you provide GPS coordinates, a street address, any official survey showing these trees on HOA land?" He hesitated. "No further questions," she said, and sat down. Murmurs erupted through the courtroom. Next came the documents, the orchard clause buried deep in the HOA bylaws. They waved it around like a holy relic, until our lawyer called the county surveyor. He walked to the stand, a quiet man with a stack of rolled maps under his arm. He spoke like every word carried weight. "These are the original plots from the county archives," he said. He unrolled the maps across the table, the paper crackling like old bones. "Do you see any record of an orchard?" our lawyer asked. He pointed at the paper. "No, there never was." Gasps broke out behind us. The judge banged a gavel. "Order!" The HOA's attorney tried to recover, calling their president to the stand. He strutted up, smile thin as wire, the man who had once told me to be careful. He claimed the trees had been mature, well-established, valued at $50,000 each. He said he'd seen me removing them at night. "Do you have proof?" our lawyer asked. "Eyewitness accounts. Names?" "I don't recall." "Video footage?" "Not available." "Purchase records, maintenance receipts, tax filings?" "Those were misplaced." "Misplaced," she repeated. His smile faltered. "Did you personally ever see these trees?" A long pause. "No." It felt like the air shifted, like something broke. Then came my turn. I walked to the stand on legs that felt like stone. My heart thundered, but my voice stayed steady. I told them everything. The first letters, the phantom violations, the sabotage, the vandalism, the threats. I told them about the break-in, the apple left on our counter like a warning. about the night they tore our yard apart looking for something that never existed. I watched the jurors' faces change as I spoke. First confusion, then disgust, then anger. When I finished, the room was silent, until the judge said quietly, "You may step down." We thought we'd shown everything. We were wrong, because then our lawyer pulled out her last weapon, a thin black binder. She flipped it open slowly, like drawing a sword. "These," she said, "are the HOA's financial records, obtained via subpoena, redacted by them, but not well enough." She projected a spreadsheet on the screen. Line after line of payments labeled orchard maintenance, tens of thousands of dollars collected from homeowners over the past decade. "Where did this money go?" she asked. The board's attorney objected. The judge overruled. She clicked to the next slide. Copies of bank statements, transfers from the HOA account into personal accounts, names matching 3 of the board members sitting in front of us. "Here," she said, tapping the screen, "is your orchard." Gasps, shouts. The judge pounded the gavel. "Order! Order!" She turned to the board. "This court finds the defendants liable for defamation, harassment, and fraud. Damages are awarded to the plaintiffs in the amount of $4 million. It didn't feel real. $4 million! I just sat there, numb, while flashbulbs exploded. The board sat frozen, like statues of ash. Everything they'd built, the power, the fear, the control, had just collapsed in seconds. Outside the courthouse, the air felt different, cooler, cleaner. Neighbors who had once avoided us now pressed forward, wide-eyed, apologizing, offering hugs, stammering about how they never knew. But I barely heard them, because across the street, standing alone on the sidewalk, was the HOA president, staring at me. Not angry, not shouting, just empty. For years he had ruled this neighborhood like a king, and now, stripped of everything, he looked small, broken. Our lawyer touched my arm. "It's over," she said gently. But I wasn't sure, because as we turned to leave, the president whispered something I'll never forget. "This isn't the end." That night I walked through our yard for the first time in months without fear. The moonlight silvered the soil where the HOA had once torn everything apart. It was just dirt now, quiet, still. I thought about everything they'd taken from us, and everything we had just taken back. Justice, maybe. Truth, definitely. But peace? That was still coming. I closed my eyes, breathed deep, and for the first time in years, it didn't feel like the air was watching me. And that's when the letter arrived. No envelope, no stamp, just taped to our front door. One sentence, scrawled in thick black marker. "You might have won the battle, but the war isn't over."
The house was quiet. Not the tense, brittle quiet we'd lived in for so long. Not the kind that pressed against your ribs and made you jump at every creak. This was different, peaceful. For the first time in years, our home felt like ours again. The legal battle had ended, at least on paper. The verdict stood. The judge's words still echoed in my head like distant thunder. In favor of the plaintiffs, on all counts. $4 million in damages. A permanent injunction against the HOA from contacting or penalizing us again. Criminal referrals for the board's financial fraud. It was everything we had fought for. But winning didn't erase the scars. The neighborhood had changed almost overnight. The morning after the verdict, the HOA board resigned en masse. Not with apologies or explanations, just a curt group email.
Effective immediately, the board will disband pending reorganization and external audit. By the end of the week, county officials had taken over management duties. The HOA office sat dark, blinds drawn, a padlock on the door. Neighbors walked by in stunned silence, like they were passing a crime scene. And in a way, they were. We thought people would celebrate with us. Some did, but others couldn't look us in the eye. It was like they'd reminded them of something they didn't want to face, how close they'd come to becoming the next target, how easy it had been for fear to keep them quiet. At first, it hurt. We'd hoped for cheers, for vindication. Instead, there was just distance. Polite nods, tight smiles, conversations that stopped when we walked by. We weren't the villains anymore, but we weren't exactly neighbors either. We were something else now. A reminder. Money didn't fix that. The settlement arrived in stages, checks that looked unreal, commas in places we'd never seen before. We rebuilt the yard first, hauling away the scarred soil and planting new grass, new flowers, new life. It felt symbolic, like erasing their fingerprints from the earth. We replaced our shattered mailbox, painted the front door, repaved the walkway. Bit by bit, the house stopped looking like a battlefield. Inside, we finally allowed ourselves to breathe. We paid off debts, replenished the kids' college funds, bought a reliable car. For the first time in years, the future didn't feel like a cliff. But the real rebuilding wasn't the house. It was us. The kids had nightmares for months after the trial. They'd wake up crying that they're coming back. We'd sit on their beds until sunrise, whispering over and over, "It's over. You're safe. They can't hurt us anymore." Eventually, the night terrors stopped. They started drawing again, laughing again, playing in the yard like they used to, chasing each other across the new grass we'd planted together. Watching them, I realized how much they'd carried, how much fear they'd hidden just to protect us. It broke me, and it healed me, because they weren't broken. They were stronger than I had ever known. As for us, for me and my spouse, it took time to trust the silence again. For a long while, every creak in the house still made our hearts seize. Every rustle outside had us peeking through the blinds, ready for another attack. But slowly, the silence stopped feeling like danger. It started feeling like peace. We began going for walks again, planting flowers, smiling at neighbors without scanning for hidden threats behind their eyes. It was like thawing out after a long, bitter winter. Then came the ripple effects, the fallout. The county's audit of the HOA uncovered everything: the forged records, the siphoned funds, the intimidation campaigns. It wasn't just us. They had quietly extorted nearly every family in the neighborhood for years, hiding fake orchard fees in the fine print of dues. People were furious. Some threatened lawsuits of their own. Others demanded full repayment. 3 former board members faced criminal charges: wire fraud, embezzlement, falsifying public documents. We didn't attend the hearings. We didn't need to. Justice had already been done. The community voted to dissolve the HOA entirely. It wasn't quick or easy. It took months of paperwork, petitions, heated meetings in the community center. But in the end, they did it. The HOA was gone. In its place, the county established a voluntary neighborhood council. No power to fine, no power to harass, just a group to organize events and keep things tidy. No more secret meetings, no more midnight citations, no more fear. The street feels different now, lighter. One evening months later, I found something buried under the old rose bush by our porch. A small wooden stake, orange paint flaking off. HOA Survey Division. I held it in my hand for a long time, just staring. It felt like holding a ghost. Then I snapped it in half and threw it away. We could have left. Part of us wanted to. For months, moving seemed like the only way to escape the memories. But this was our home. We had fought for it. We had bled for it. And we weren't going to give it up just because someone tried to steal our peace. Now when I stand on the porch at dusk, I don't see a battlefield anymore. I see the place where we took our lives back. Neighbors talk to us again, slowly, cautiously. Some apologize for not defending us sooner. We tell them it's okay, because deep down we understand. Fear is powerful. It silences people. We know. We lived it. And maybe, just maybe, our fight reminded them that silence is a choice, that it has a cost. Because what happened to us didn't start with lies or fines or phantom apple trees. It started with silence, with people looking away. We've become something of a legend in town now. People from other neighborhoods sometimes stop by to ask how we did it, how we survived taking on an HOA and winning. We tell them the truth. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about revenge. It was about refusing to let fear decide who we became. Because that's what they tried to do. Shrink us down, break us apart, erase us. And they failed. Every so often, we still get anonymous notes. Little jabs. Hope you're enjoying the money. Traitors, don't get too comfortable. They don't scare us anymore. They just remind us of how far we've come. Because fear only works if you let it. The most surprising part? The apple. That single apple they left on our counter during the break-in. We kept it. It's dried out now, small and shriveled, sealed in a glass jar on a shelf in the hallway. A reminder, not of fear, of victory, of everything we endured and everything we reclaimed. The house is quiet again tonight. Not the old quiet, the kind that trembles and waits for the next attack. This is a different kind of quiet. Full, warm, safe. I walk out onto the porch, feel the breeze on my face, and watch the sun dip below the rooftops. Our kids are laughing in the yard. The grass glows gold. The world feels whole again. And I realize something. We didn't just win a lawsuit. We didn't just survive them. We ended them. We ended the fear. We ended the silence. We ended the idea that power belongs to whoever shouts the loudest or punishes the hardest. Because power doesn't come from intimidation. It comes from standing your ground when the whole world tells you to run. It comes from saying, "This is our home, and you will not take it from us." We thought the climax was the verdict, but standing here now, I know the real climax is this. Peace. Hard won, ours. And that is the truest victory of all.